Welcome. My name is Brendan Raymond Jacobian. I work with Coeric Inc., the Alaska Native nonprofit tribal consortium representing the 20 federally recognized tribes of the Bering Strait region. Today, we'll be providing a webinar about the North Pacific Fishery Management Council process, particularly as pertains to the current chum salmon bycatch issue. This issue will be under consideration at the upcoming February 2026 meeting of the Council, which will be held virtually and in Anchorage. The purpose of this webinar is to provide information to tribes and tribal members to assist in their engagement in the NPFMC process. The webinar will provide information on the Council, on the chum salmon bycatch issue, which is currently in front of the Council, and information about how to participate in the Council's process. First, we'll take a moment to review some common acronyms and abbreviations that are used in this process and this webinar. The federal fishery management process is heavily laden with the use of acronyms. The North Pacific Fishery Management Council, or the Council for short, is abbreviated as the NPFMC. The National Marine Fisheries Service, or NOAA Fisheries, is abbreviated as NIMFS. A draft environmental impact statement, the DEIS. The National Environmental Policy Act is called NEPA. The Council's Scientific and Statistical Committee is called the SSC. The Council's Advisory Panel, the AP. Prohibited Species Catch is abbreviated as PSC. Magnuson-Stevens Fishery Conservation and Management Act, or the Magnuson-Stevens Act, is abbreviated as MSA. And the Exclusive Economic Zone is the EEZ. More acronyms related to this process can also be found at the link noted on the slide. I'll now be taking you through a few slides discussing what the North Pacific Fishery Management Council is. The Council is one of 8 regional councils created by the Magnuson-Stevens Act. The Council is a quasi-federal body which takes management actions that are reviewed and implemented by the National Marine Fisheries Service. NIMFS is a part of NOAA, and also often called NOAA Fisheries, and NOAA is a part of the Department of Commerce. The Council's purview pertains to the United States federal EEZ waters off of the coast of Alaska, that is 3 to 200 nautical miles offshore. In contrast, the state of Alaska manages fisheries within 3 miles, and with some exceptions within the river systems. Keep in mind that the Council is not part of NIMFS, nor are they a federal agency, but rather an independent quasi-governmental body that works with NIMFS. The Council develops management plans and regulations, which can be, and almost always are, approved by Commerce. NIMFS then implements them and provides enforcement. The MSA was passed in 1976 and created the Council. The Act has had 2 major revisions, once in 1996 with the Sustainable Fisheries Act, and again in 2007 with the MSA Reauthorization Act. Another set of revisions and reauthorization has recently been under consideration. The national standards in the MSA are principles which are supposed to be followed in fishery management plans which the Council and NIMFS develop and use. There are 10 standards, which each have more detailed guidelines associated with them. Some of the key standards that are often discussed related to chum bycatch are National Standards 1, 2, 8, and 9. National Standard 1 lays out that the Council and NIMFS need to ensure that conservation and management measures prevent overfishing while achieving optimum yield from the federal fishery. National Standard 2 requires that conservation and management be based on the best scientific information available, which includes consideration of local and traditional knowledge. National Standard 8 dictates that conservation and management measures take into account the importance of fishery resources to fishing communities by utilizing economic and social data. And National Standard 9 states that conservation and management measures shall, to the extent practicable, minimize bycatch, and to the extent that bycatch cannot be avoided, minimize the mortality of such bycatch. The Council itself has 15 seats, 11 of which are voting, 4 are non-voting, generally representing a variety of interests in industry, conservation, and federal and state government. There are no designated tribal seats on the Council. While tribal members may and have served on the Council, they are not appointed as such and do not necessarily represent tribal interests. There are longstanding efforts to get one or more designated tribal seats on the council, which is generally dominated by industry interests. An important thing to keep in mind is that while the council and NIMS sit within the federal fisheries sphere, there is an important role that the state of Alaska plays. The governor of the state of Alaska is responsible for seating or appointing 6 of the 11 voting seats. The state seat is filled by the ADF&G commissioner's representative, and the state selects the candidates for the other 5 seats within its purview, which are then considered and confirmed by the Secretary of Commerce. This means that the state not only has a controlling influence in the nearshore and in-river management of salmon and related to salmon, they also have significant influence in the offshore federal fishery, which has impacts on salmon populations through their NPFMC seat and appointments. The council also has a number of staff who help run the administration of the body and conduct analytical work for the meetings. The council has a number of committees, teams, and other sub-bodies. The main 2 sub-bodies are the Advisory Panel, or AP, and the Scientific and Statistical Committee, or SSC. Council meetings, which now occur normally 4 times a year, include a meeting of the main council, as well as the AP and SSC. The AP and SSC consider items earlier than the council does, so that they can provide their input to the council later in the meeting for decision-making. These bodies are advisory to the council, who is the final decision maker at this level of the federal fishery process, with the Secretary of the Department of Commerce then having final decision maker status regarding council actions. The AP currently has 19 members, and it provides advisory recommendations to the council for consideration through a voting process. The AP deliberates most of the items the council considers. Owing to the work of tribal advocates, there is now 1 designated tribal seat on the AP, which is currently held by Eva Dawn Burke of Nenana. And though not designated tribal seats, a number of other tribal members also sit on the AP. The AP represents a broad variety of interests in the council process, including larger scale industry, small boat fishing, CDQs, tribes, and conservation. The SSC has approximately 20 members with scientific expertise in a number of fields. The SSC is, in general, very Western science oriented, and like the council as a whole, has only recently become more familiar with a more systematic inclusion of tribal voices and knowledge in analysis, deliberation, and decision making. The SSC operates generally through consensus, not voting, and provides scientific analyses of various issues to the council to help inform their decision making. There are also a number of other committees, plan teams, and other sub-bodies which have a variety of expertise and interests represented on them, and which handle specific issues and filter their recommendations to the council. Actions from the council go to the Department of Commerce for final approval and implementation. Much of the on-the-ground or on-the-water management is done within the region. The Alaska Regional Office, or ACRO, which is based in Juneau, is the policy and management arm of NMFS in the Alaska region, and the regional administrator for this office sits on the council in a voting seat. It is also worth noting the Alaska Fisheries Science Center, or AFC, which is based in Seattle. AFSC is responsible for the science side of the Alaska region for NMFS. The center conducts science to be used in the conservation and management of Alaska marine species. AFSC scientists play a large role in informing the council process. I'll now provide a brief overview of the current issue pertaining to chum salmon bycatch at the council. Salmon are a very important subsistence species to tribes and tribal members in western and interior Alaska. Problems with salmon stocks have been seen in this region in significant ways, including for up to decades in some regions, and experienced very acutely in more recent years, even resulting in severe fishing restrictions. This is one reason why many people are concerned about salmon bycatch. There are a number of stressors that are impacting wild chum salmon populations that are returning to western and interior Alaska rivers. One is the large harvest of chum salmon in the state-managed Area M commercial salmon fishery. Another group of factors are ecosystem issues, like the impacts of climate change, disease, habitat issues, and large-scale chum salmon hatchery releases into the ocean. Another major stressor, and what this webinar focuses on, is the incidental take or bycatch of chum salmon in the federally managed offshore pollock trawl fleet. This last issue is what is being analyzed in the current EIS process and deliberated by the NPFMC. Bycatch is a term used to describe fish that are harvested but not kept for sale or personal use. These fish are caught incidentally during the harvest of other targeted fish. Salmon are bycatch in the directed Bering Sea and Aleutian Islands offshore pollock trawl fishery. Another related term is prohibited species catch, or PSC, and it refers to species that by regulation are not supposed to be caught and are not allowed to be kept for sale. Salmon are considered PSC in groundfish fisheries, like the pollock pelagic trawl fishery. This occurs because salmon generally swim in the same water column as pollock. As salmon are PSC, when they are bycaught, they are not retained, with one exception, which I'll mention momentarily. Essentially, all of the bycaught salmon die, and most are discarded as waste, except for a small portion which go into a charitable donation program. This issue is being raised at the council currently because of a combination of factors. This includes the very low recent chum salmon returns, which are occurring on top of the severe crisis affecting Chinook or king salmon stocks. Additionally, there have been a number of years of extremely high amounts of chum salmon bycatch in the pollock fishery. There is currently no cap on this bycatch, which in recent times has averaged approximately 250,000 chum a year, approximately 18% of which, or about 48,000 per year on average, originate from Western and interior Alaska, with much of the rest being hatchery fish, especially of Asian origin. Importantly, tribal voices have advocated for a long time for reductions to bycatch at the council, and in recent years brought heavy focus on the issue of chum salmon bycatch, which spurred the council down the current path leading to this DEIS. The National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA for short, was passed into law in 1969. A NEPA process begins for a variety of actions, including when a federal agency, in this case NIMS, begins to take an action with potentially significant impacts on the human environment. The action being considered is the development of management measures to reduce the bycatch of chum salmon in the pollock fishery in the Bering Sea subarea of the Bering Sea and Aleutian Islands region. The NPFMC and NIMS, along with cooperating agencies, work together in the development of EIS documents. In April of 2023, the NPFMC crafted the purpose and need statement for this EIS. Key elements of this statement, which guide the reasoning behind the EIS itself, include the following: that chum salmon are an important resource, that Western and interior Alaska chum stocks are undergoing crises, that chum bycatch in the pollock fishery is one factor which reduces the amount of salmon returning to Western and interior Alaska rivers, and that the purpose of the action is to develop measures to minimize bycatch of Western Alaska origin chum salmon in the pollock fishery. The process associated with this action is a long one. In addition to precursors to the formal EIS process, including engagement by tribes and the public, and early analysis and deliberation, the EIS process itself lasts approximately 2 years. This process moves through a notice of intent, scoping period, the preparation and review of draft EIS documents, the development of final EIS documents, a record of decision, and implementation. These documents, among other things, analyze the potential effects from various alternative approaches to management actions under consideration to reduce chum salmon bycatch. We are currently at the stage of final action by the council regarding the alternatives in the current draft EIS. There are currently 5 alternatives under consideration. The first is a no action alternative, which is a part of every EIS process. Alternative 2 would impose an overall cap on chum salmon PSC in the pollock fishery at a number between 100 and 550,000 chum a year. Alternative 3 would create a cap on chum salmon PSC, which varies depending on in-river abundance of chum salmon. Alternative 4 involves a number of changes to the industry's incentive plan agreements, or IPAs, which would then be codified into regulation. Alternative 5 mostly involves the development of time and area caps in particular sub-areas where the pollock fleet has high Western Alaska chum salmon bycatch. Alternatives may be implemented on their own, or in some cases in combination with other alternatives. Alternative 1 is mutually exclusive with all other alternatives. Alternatives 2 and 3 are mutually exclusive of each other. Alternatives 4 and 5 may be combined with each other, as well as one of either alternatives 2 or 3. The Council will be taking final action at the February 2026 meeting and selecting one or more alternatives which they would like to see implemented. Tribes and the public are able to be involved in this EIS process in a number of ways. Federally recognized tribes may engage in tribal consultation with NIMS regarding this issue. Additionally, there are various stages at which people may participate in the public elements of the process, such as through providing written and verbal testimony at council meetings. This point leads us to the next part of the webinar, which is about participating in the council process. There are a variety of ways to participate in the council process. Some of the key ones are mentioned here, and they include attending or listening to council meetings or meetings of its various subbodies. You can attend meetings in person or listen to them online. Most council meetings are held in Anchorage, though some are held in smaller Alaska fishing communities and in the Pacific Northwest. You can apply to serve on council bodies. Tribal citizens and entities can participate in tribal engagement meetings conducted by the council and NIMS. Formal representatives of federally recognized tribes can request and participate in tribal consultations with NIMS. You can provide written comment to the council and or its subbodies, and you can provide verbal testimony to the council and or its subbodies. We're going to mainly focus for the remainder of this webinar on the last item noted, which is about providing verbal testimony to the council. On the screen now is the homepage of the council's website, which is found at npfmc.org. There is a lot of information on the council's website about the council itself, its meetings, and about particular issues it works on. We'll focus here on navigating the website to find out about the upcoming meeting and how to provide written comment or sign up for verbal testimony. What you'll do once you're on the council's homepage is to navigate to the Our Meetings drop-down at the top left. If you hover over that, where you'll see an orange arrow on the screen, you'll then see and select Current or Next Council Meeting. This will lead you to the next page, which you'll see here. On this page for the upcoming meeting, you'll see a variety of different information. The green button towards the top of the page, which is not shown here, brings you to a PDF with a projected schedule for the meeting. Keep in mind that the schedule is just an estimate and that things may not stick to that timeline. Further below on the page, which is what is shown on screen now, you'll see 3 gray boxes, one for each of the council, the AP, and the SSC. There are links in those gray boxes as well. The agenda links take you to each of the meetings' agendas, which is where documents are posted, where you can upload written comment or sign up for testimony, and where phone call-in information is found. The meeting link takes you to the Zoom broadcast of the meeting, and the YouTube link takes you to where the meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. You'll also see below on this page how you can sign up for the council's text alert system, which sends text to you during the meeting about where they are on the agenda. We're going to go next to the council agenda page, which is where we've put an orange arrow on the screen. That link takes you to the e-agenda page for the current council meeting. At the top of that page, you'll see information about the phone call-in and Zoom information for the meeting, as well as the deadline for submitting written comment for this meeting, which is January 30th, 2026 at 12 p.m. Alaska time. If you scroll down, you'll see what's displayed here on the screen now. The chum bycatch issue is agenda item C2 for this meeting. Here you will see various documents uploaded, which you can click on to read about the issue. You'll also see a green button labeled Comment Now, which we've placed an orange arrow pointing to on the screen. If you click on that green button, it opens a pop-up which looks like what is on the screen now. On the Comments tab, you can upload written testimony by following the instructions. For verbal testimony, you'll have to wait until the meeting starts and they get closer to taking up the agenda item. Then this pop-up will look slightly different, and you'll see where you can click on a tab for signing up for providing verbal testimony. You can elect to waive questions if you do not want to take questions after you testify. You need to sign up before staff finish their presentations on the agenda item that you want to testify on, which is when they close the sign-up window. The council starts taking verbal testimony after the conclusion of presentations from staff and other council subbodies in the order that people signed up. If you're at the meeting in person, make sure to be in the room, which is at the Egan Center in Anchorage this February, when they get to you on the sign-up list. The sign-up list is also posted in this pop-up. If you're going to be providing testimony remotely, make sure you call into the meeting so they can unmute you to speak when it's your time to testify. The number to call into is listed at the top of the agenda page. Make sure you call in from the number you signed up with. That way, council staff know who to unmute when it's your turn to testify. Make sure you have good cell service, that there aren't any background noises, and if you're connected by both Zoom and by phone, make sure to mute your computer or go into another room, or the feedback could prevent you from testifying. Here's a few pointers about developing and presenting testimony to the council. Remember that the council schedule is just a rough guide, so it's good to track where they are on an issue by receiving the text alerts or by listening to the meeting on Zoom, on the phone, or on YouTube. At the council, if you're speaking on behalf of yourself, you'll have 3 minutes for testimony. If you're authorized to speak on behalf of your tribe or an organization or association, you'll have 6 minutes. You can take questions or decline to take questions. It's important to stay within your time limits. Running over time is awkward for people in the meeting and detracts from the points that you're trying to make. It's a good idea to practice your testimony beforehand to see how long it will take to go through it, so you can adjust accordingly. It's also important to be civil in your comments. You can craft your testimony in many different ways, depending on what you want to communicate. Things you could talk about, for example, are the importance of the issue to you, your family, and your community. You could talk about your knowledge and experiences relevant to the issue. And you could talk about what you're asking for the council to do. If you need assistance in working on your testimony, please feel free to contact the Quirk Social Science Program. That concludes the webinar. Thank you, Kayana, for your interest and attention. If you have questions, please reach out to the Quirk Social Science Program. The program's email and phone number are noted on the slide.